Hey, what's up, YouTube? So the New England Patriots, they were once again the class of the NFL, it seems like, last season in 2017. They finished the regular season with a 13-3 record. They were the best team in the AFC. They ended up making it to the Super Bowl where they ended up losing it, losing that game to the Philadelphia Eagles. And once again, another great Super Bowl that the New England Patriots play in. It seems like every single time they appear in the Super Bowl, it goes down as an all-time great game. This one was just an absolute shootout. Tom Brady ended up winning MVP, his third MVP trophy on his illustrious career. He once again was just flat out amazing last season. He carried a very inconsistent defense the entire season. Now, with that said, it wasn't all positives, I think, for the Patriots last season, even though they were once again an absolutely dominant team during the regular season and in the playoffs, as it ended up showing until the Super Bowl. They ended up trading away Jimmy Garoppolo to the 49ers for just a second-round pick, and it seems like now, seeing how Jimmy Garoppolo is kind of looking like a franchise type of quarterback, that the Patriots might have gotten fleeced there. The 49ers might have gotten a steal with that trade. This has kind of led to an apparent rift, I think, between Bill Belichick and Tom Brady and some of the other players. Personally, I feel like this has kind of been overblown by the media going into this offseason. But nonetheless, that was kind of the narrative into the offseason where the New England Patriots, they lost the Super Bowl. There's a rift between Tom Brady and the head coach. Not everyone's on board like they used to be. So that was kind of what the New England Patriots were dealing with going into the offseason. Plus, they had a lot of key people, a lot of key players going into free agency. So there was a lot of work to get done for the New England Patriots going into this offseason. Some of the needs that they needed to address in this offseason, the first and most primary one was the pass rush. The New England Patriots, they just did not have a very good pass rush last season. They were able to generate some pass rush through scheming and blitzing and stuff of that nature, but their leading sack artist last season was Trey Flowers, the defensive lineman, with 6.5 sacks. That's just not going to get the job done. They didn't really have that one guy since Chandler Jones was traded to the Arizona Cardinals that can really strike fear in an offensive line into a quarterback with just being a dominant pass rusher. So they needed to get some more pass rushing help because Tom Brady, it's assumed that he's going to have another amazing year. They're going to have a lot of leads, so they're going to need to rely on that pass rush to keep leads late in the game. We kind of saw that in the Super Bowl where they just were not able to generate enough pressure on Nick Foles, and he was just able to pick them apart. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that another need for them was their secondary. They got absolutely torched last year in the Super Bowl, and they just needed to address this, bringing some new fresh blood in the defensive secondary there, just bringing some more depth, some more playmakers there. They had some nice talent on paper, it seemed like, last season going into the season, but it just never really meshed very well for them. Even though they had Malcolm Butler, Stephon Gilmore, who ended up coming on later in the season, they just weren't able to really get that unit playing as well as they needed to, and we really saw that in the Super Bowl. Another need for them was left tackle. Nate Solder was entering free agency. He's been a long-time steady presence at that left tackle position, protecting Tom Brady's blind side. So they either needed to figure out a way to keep him in free agency or just address that in another way going into this offseason. And then finally, the last and most major need, I think, for the Patriots, other than the pass rush, obviously, was getting a young backup quarterback as Tom Brady, because obviously they traded away Jimmy Garoppolo, they traded away Jacoby Brissett. The cupboard is kind of bare there in terms of guys that they can kind of groom and develop there going into the season or going into this offseason, as it were. And Tom Brady, he ain't getting any younger. He might be playing some of his best football his entire career, but at some point he's going to have to start declining at some point. They need a backup option to kind of continue this dynasty in the post-Tom Brady era. So that was kind of where the Patriots were in terms of their needs. In terms of the departures, like I said, they had a lot of impending free agents going into this offseason, and a lot of them they ended up losing because of salary cap restraints and just the fact that the New England Patriots, they're not afraid to let some guys go a year or two early and kind of change their roster on the fly. So some of the guys that they ended up losing, Malcolm Butler, the Super Bowl hero from a couple of years ago, he's been a very good quarterback for them. They ended up losing him, and running back Deion Lewis, who's had a very successful career with the New England Patriots. They both went to the Tennessee Titans, both joining their team over there. They ended up losing Nate Solder. Like I said, he was a free agent. They left him to the Giants, leaving a huge hole at the left tackle position. And then they ended up losing Danny Amendola, wide receiver, who ended up signing with the Miami Dolphins. He had a big game in the Super Bowl for them. He's been a very nice contributor for this team over the past few seasons. Those are some major losses. And then when you compound that with the fact that they ended up trading Brandon Cooks to the Los Angeles Rams for a first-round pick, yes, they got a first-round pick out of that. It's a huge deal. I think that ended up being a very good trade for the Patriots overall. But Brandon Cooks, he was a very explosive playmaker for them, very inconsistent at times. I'm not really sure they really needed him in that offense per se. But again, you can never have too many weapons on the outside, especially when you have an aging quarterback. So that definitely might hurt them going into the future. But again, lots of talent lost for this team. They ended up making it to the Super Bowl last season. So again, more needs for them to end up really trying to cover up in this offseason. Going into free agency, they did make a few subtle signings here and there. I think that did really help this team out. First, getting defensive end Adrian Claiborne from the Atlanta Falcons, who you might remember had 6 sacks in a game against the Dallas Cowboys last season. They signed him to a 2-year, $10 million contract. Again, not really breaking the bank here, but he's a solid player that can add some element to the pass rush, and he's a very good solid run defender as well, and a very versatile guy along the line of scrimmage. As a 4-3 defensive end, 3-4 defensive end, maybe even standing him up here and there. He can do a lot of things on the defensive front. Getting running back Jeremy Hill on a 1-year, $1.5 million deal, a bruising running back to kind of be a short area type of guy. Getting offensive tackle Matt Tobin to a 1-year, $815,000 deal. Again, these aren't really big signings here. These kind of guys are going to go under the radar, I think, a little bit. And maybe not guys that really contribute that much, but they're going to fill a certain role here and add some depth to this team. And Bill Belichick, he's a master of kind of using this as a kind of a chess piece, is what the NFL is. And Matt Tobin, he's not going to probably play too much next year for them, but he adds some depth to the offensive tackle spot. They needed to address that position to make sure that they just don't have nobody at that position. Then one more sign for them that I really like for them, wide receiver Jordan Matthews on a 1-year, $1.7 million deal when you include incentives. He's a guy that had to battle through a lot of injuries last season. But when you look at the numbers, how he's kind of produced over the past couple of seasons, especially in his time in Philadelphia, he's a guy that has a lot of potential as a slot wide receiver to be very productive in this offense with Tom Brady. So another under-the-radar signing there. And then they also did a lot in terms of trading, which Bill Belichick is not afraid to make a lot of trades to help improve this team. They did a lot. They were very active in terms of trading for some players in this offseason as well. Adding a guy like Jason McCourty at the cornerback, trading him, getting him in a 7th-round pick from the Cleveland Browns just for a 6th-round pick, essentially just moving back in order to get him. I thought that was a pretty good move for them there. Getting a guy like Cordell Patterson, wide receiver from the Oakland Raiders, for a 6th-round pick from the Raiders for a 5th-round pick. Again, essentially the same deal where they get the player and they end up moving back in the draft. And then getting a guy like Danny Shelton, defensive tackle, big guy along the defensive front, trading him, getting a 5th-round pick for him, giving up a 3rd-round pick to the Cleveland Browns. Those are some of the moves they made. These are moves that will go under the radar, but the Patriots, they're going to find a way to make this kind of work. It's kind of what they've done throughout Bill Belichick's time as at the New England Patriots head coach and GM. Then as we transition to the draft here, I thought the New England Patriots had a pretty solid draft overall. They ended up having 2 first-round picks, as I said, because of the trade with the Los Angeles Rams trading away Brandon Cooks. And on the first one, the 23rd overall pick, they ended up drafting offensive lineman Isaiah Wynn, who can kind of play offensive tackle or guard for them. They're probably going to try him out at both, but he's from Georgia. He's a very solid player. I was very high on him going into the draft. And then with the 31st pick in the first round, they got another Georgia player, getting running back Sony Michel, another guy that I really like. I thought that was a perfect spot to kind of select him there. 2 very solid first-round pick. Kind of getting that Georgia NFL team, bringing them to the NFL. 2 very nice picks there for them. In the second round, they got Duke Dawson, quarterback out of Florida. They didn't have a 3rd or 4th-round pick as they decided to do a lot of trades, stacking up draft picks for future drafts. So they just kept on trading down, and stockpiling picks for upcoming drafts. So that was kind of the philosophy the Patriots were going with there. So they didn't have another pick till the 5th round where they selected Jawan Bentley, linebacker out of Purdue, more of a run-stopping linebacker there. And then they had 2 6th-round pick and Christian Sams, another linebacker out of Arizona State. Braxton Berrios, a slot receiver and punt returner type of guy, a wide receiver out of Miami. And then the 7th round, they had another interesting pick here, finally getting a quarterback that they needed to address, getting Danny Etling out of LSU, who was really flown under the radar. I really didn't know much about this guy going in, but they finally decided to address their young quarterback to kind of groom and kind of be their backup quarterback for this upcoming season. And Danny Etling there, very interesting pick there for them. So when I think about the Patriots offseason, this is obviously a very busy offseason for the Patriots. It oversaw a lot of upheaval, I think, in terms of their roster, lots of moving pieces all over the board for them. In terms of the positives, I thought they did a really good job of finding some very good value in free agency and through some very savvy trades throughout the course of this offseason. I really like the signing of Jordan Matthews. I think he can be a steal on a one-year prove-it type of deal. If he can click with Tom Brady there, he can be very productive in this offense. Adrian Claiborne, they didn't have to break the bank for him necessarily, only really paying $5 million per year for him. He's a very solid pass rusher, run stopper type of guy. And like I said, they didn't really need to break the bank for him. He's very versatile along the defensive front. He adds a lot to that defense, I think. He won't be necessarily a great playmaker for them, but he's very solid in terms of the rotation that he's going to be in. Jason McCourty, he gets to join his brother Devin McCourty in that defensive backfield. So I think that's very interesting to see how they'll play out. Maybe they'll start to bring some of the best football out of him. He's kind of an older player at the very end of his career, seems like at this point. But maybe joining his brother will kind of give him that little boost that he needs to become a very productive player once again. Cordero Patterson, I think he adds a very big boost in terms of the return game. He's not going to give you much in terms of being a wide receiver or anything like that. But the Patriots, they really haven't had a lot in terms of an explosive playmaker at the return position over the past few seasons. And Patterson can add a lot of excitement into the return game, where now they can really benefit from having some better field position now for Tom Brady and that offense, really help him out there. And then I really like the trade for Danny Shelton. He's not going to add much value in terms of his pass rushing, which is what the Patriots needed, but he's a very, very good run defender. He's a big body up front. He's still young on his rookie contract, and he can be a very good run stopper in Bill Belichick's system, providing a lot of roles along their defensive front. They run a hybrid kind of defense, 4-3-3-4 defense, and he can provide a bunch of different roles as a nose tackle in whatever scheme they ended up running with him. I think that was a very good trade, only giving up a third-round pick and then getting a fifth-round pick later in the draft. And speaking of the draft, I thought they had a pretty nice draft overall. Isaiah Wing is a very versatile offensive lineman that they can fill pretty much anywhere along their offensive line. Now, I said in previous videos I thought he fit better as a guard, and I'm still sticking with that there. But they're obviously going to try him out at left tackle with Nate Solder leaving in free agency. So we'll see how that kind of works out for him. But he's played left tackle before, so it's not like he's just starting this position now. He's played left tackle in college. He fits better as a guard as of now, but with the right amount of time to develop, I think he could definitely play left tackle at the next level. So we'll see how that ends up working for him there. If not, he's going to be a very good guard in this league, so a very good pick there. And the Patriots, although they prefer to do a kind of running back by committee approach, Sony Michel, he's the type of guy that is very versatile. He can do a lot of different things. So I think he can step in and be the lead back for them right away in this offense. And they need to really replace Deion Lewis, who's been very productive for them in spurts over his career with the Patriots over the past few seasons. Basically, Sony Michel, I feel like he's a younger, more spry version of Deion Lewis. And I think it's going to be a very nice fit for the Patriots going into this offense. I like the draft pick of Duke Dawson in the second round. I wasn't too high on going into this draft, but he's the type of guy that is very versatile, and he can play both cornerback and safety. Again, adding some nice depth to this defensive backfield. So that way Bill Belichick has more options and they have more depth to kind of prepare for some injuries if they do occur. I like that they double-dipped at linebacker position, first getting Bentley, who's more of a thumper in the running game. He's a big guy, about 260 pounds, I believe. He's a very, very big player at the linebacking position. He's a guy that they can put on first and second down in running situations and just be a guy that can just stuff the running back in the hole. They got him later in the draft, so he's not really expected to have a huge role for them, I don't think, but I think that might be a nice value pick for them there. Christian Sammy's more of an athletic linebacker, so they get two linebackers who kind of fill two different roles for them there, getting some more depth for them. And, man, I got to say it. I have a feeling that Braxton Berrios, he will be a guy that will somehow become the next Wes Welker, Danny Amendola, Julian Edelman type of wide receiver. They always seem to find these guys late in the drafts or undrafted free agents or in free agency at a very low price. They just keep on finding these type of guys. Braxton Berrios, he kind of fits in that same mold. He might – for some reason, I just feel like he might be a type of guy that kind of fills that same role and might eventually develop into that type of player. Obviously, maybe not as good as a Wes Welker or Julian Edelman, but he might fill a similar type of role in this offense. Another positive for them, they didn't have to overpay, I think, in free agency to kind of fill some needs. They did a pretty good job, like I said, of sticking below the radar, getting a lot of guys at very cheap contracts there, a lot of short-term contracts, so they didn't have to necessarily break the bank. And obviously, I think the biggest thing for them this offseason was that they had a lot of key players last season that were out due to injury. Dante Hightower, Julian Edelman. Those guys are going to get a lot more healthy. The guys can get them back into their offseason program here. Those guys are going to be healthy and ready to go for next season, which is going to be a big boost for this team overall because they did have some major injuries, particularly those two players last season that really hurt them, I think, down the stretch in that Super Bowl that we saw. Getting those two guys back, that might be the biggest additions for this team, I think, in general. So, again, those are some of the positives for this Patriots team during the offseason. In terms of negatives, like I said, they lost quite a bit of talent in this offseason. First of all, Nate Solder, while I don't think he's necessarily a great left tackle, losing him to the New York Giants, it definitely does leave a hole there. They obviously believe that Isaiah Wynn could potentially fill that role. I believe he's more of a guard, like I said, but Nate Solder, he was just such a rock-solid player for them for such a long time with the Patriots. It's going to be tough to kind of replace that type of player. Malcolm Butler, he had a very up-and-down season last year, but I still think he's a very good football player overall. I can understand that they didn't want to pay him necessarily big type of money. Again, he was an undrafted free agent. He only had really 1 or 2 years of great production, but, man, he's a very good player when he's got everything going for him. Again, it seems like it was really inevitable that he was going to leave anyway because Bill Belichick kind of had him in his doghouse the entire year, eventually benching him in the Super Bowl infamously. So he was going to leave probably anyway, but I think that's a big talent to end up losing there. They also lost a very explosive element to their offense when they traded away Brandon Cooks. Now, they didn't really have that speedy option on the outside that can really take the top off of a defense. That might be a struggle for this offense then going into the season, but they've kind of they haven't really had to rely on that in the past. Tom Brady's still going to be Tom Brady, so I feel like that might not be a huge loss for them, but it's always nice to have more explosive playmakers on your offense. And then transitioning from the offense to the defense, they still do not have a true premier edge rusher. They're going to have to generate some pressure through scheming once again next season. This could end up derailing their defense once again as they get further along in the season and they start to play offenses like the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Kansas City Chiefs, and the playoffs, teams of those type of nature, where if you're not generating pass rush, man, it might be really tough to really maintain leads going into playoffs because Tom Brady's going to obviously give you some points on the board, but, man, they need some pass rush there to kind of help close games late in games, and they don't really have a guy in this roster, I think, even with some of the offseason additions, that can really take over a game as a pass rusher. That's going to be kind of something that they're going to have to work through going into this season. And also the next negative for me, they did not get a young quarterback, I feel like, at a premium pick, and they had some chances to do so to kind of get a guy to groom behind Tom Brady. First of all, they had 2 chances in the first round to draft Lamar Jackson. While Lamar Jackson may not fit the profile of a prototypical Patriots pocket passer, he's still a very dynamic player. And with time to sit behind Tom Brady, I kind of feel like Lamar Jackson could really develop into a very nice player and a different type of player than Tom Brady. We've seen Josh McDaniels kind of adjust his scheme depending on who his quarterback is in the past, whether it was Jimmy Garoppolo or Jacoby Brissett. He's kind of done a good job of adjusting his scheme anyway. So I feel like Lamar Jackson, he just could have been a very explosive player for them. But I can understand that they wanted to address some other needs in the first round, so that's what they did. They're still in win-now mode as it is. But even in the second round, I feel like they could have gotten Mason Rudolph out of Oklahoma State at a very good value in the second round. I kind of had Mason Rudolph as a late first round, early second round type of prospect. They could have gotten a very good value on him there. Mason Rudolph, he's the kind of guy where he's very good once he learns the system. He's a very good system quarterback, I feel like. And really, Tom Brady, if you think about it, he really came about developing within the system first, and then his greatness really started to shine as his career progressed. I feel like Mason Rudolph could be a type of similar player with the New England Patriots. Now he's with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, again, I feel like that might have been a missed opportunity for the Patriots there. So, overall, I grade this offseason for the Patriots as a B. It was a very busy offseason for the Patriots that allowed them to really maintain the status quo in terms of being one of the top dogs in the NFL as a whole and really the top team in the AFC by far. Through some very savvy moves in free agency and through some trades, the Patriots were able to strengthen their roster as a whole in very many areas and maintain a lot of depth across the roster. However, they lost some very premium players to free agency that may be hard to fully replace. And like I mentioned before, the pass rush is still going to be a huge issue, I think, going into next season. It also remains to be seen whether or not it was Wright's decision to pass on drafting a young quarterback with a premium pick. As Tom Brady, you never know. He might start to face injuries soon. He's 40 years old right now as we speak.
And you just kind of wonder when he's going to start to decline, and you really need to think about the future for this franchise here. You can still win now and truly hone your team to win now and really plan to win now, but still plan for the future at the quarterback position, which is the most important position in football. With all that said, though, the Patriots, I feel like they did enough to maintain their status as the class of the AFC in this offseason. So overall, a very positive offseason, despite all the stupid chatter about whether Bill Belichick, whether he's got a control over Tom Brady, whether there's a rift there, whether there's a rift between Bill Belichick and ownership, all that stupid crap that the media talks about. Again, I think that's going to be meaningless once the season starts, and I think the Patriots are going to be, once again, one of the top teams in the NFL. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Do you agree with what I said about this offseason for the New England Patriots? If you're a New England Patriots fan, give me your thoughts in the comment section below. Please make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more videos such as this. And thanks, guys, for watching.